Good afternoon and welcome back to Plannercraft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be doing 3 quick and easy Valentine's ideas. So you're going to need 3 card blanks. Now I've gone for squares because they're nice and easy for beginners to handle and to get the layout right. So we'll start off with those. I've also pulled out 3 paper pads that we can use. Okay. So they are going to be the basis of our 3 designs. Now you're also going to need some other supplies as well. So you're going to need some complementary card in terms of colours. You're going to need some double-sided adhesive and you're going to need some pens. So I just have a stash of ScanNCut ready pens to one side. So for this first card, what we're going to be doing is using a plain but textured piece of card. And we're going to start off by creating a background. Now, for this particular step, if you wanted to, you could use a piece of white card and then ink through it to be able to have both the hearts and the colour background. And that's one way of doing our first and second cards. But for speed, then we're going to be kind of popping across to some coloured card to give us a starting point. Now, let's first of all measure our card blank. So again, we'll use our cutting mat. And very roughly, we're looking at about 5 3/4 inches. Okay, so we need our background to be slightly smaller, so if we work on a 5.5 inch square, and then we can go from there. So let's just change view. Okay, so let's reset this and start back at the beginning. So we want to create a square. And then inside that square, we're going to have a lot of hearts. So start off by adding your square. Okay. Now, because I measured in inches, I'm just going to pop across into inches. And you'll find that I will do that quite frequently in terms of swapping between the two, because it depends on how I'm measuring stuff. Generally, if I'm just measuring a rough area that a shape is taken up, I'll work in inches and go from there. But if I'm being really precise, then I'll go across to millimetres, just because you have that greater control, particularly on your ScanNCut. So, our square needs to be 5.5 inches. Okay, so with 5.5 set, we just need one of these. So I'm going to add that to my mat. That's going to pop up. Let's just turn that scan on so that it's not distracting. So there's our square. Now we need to place our hearts inside it. Now, what we could do, really simply, is go, okay, I'm going to do a heart and then I'm going to have like 20 of those that I'm going to bring in, then I'm going to reposition them all by hand. This is where I'm going to show you a little trick to make your life a little easier. So looking at our cutting mat, because it's here to help you, our square is going to be just slightly smaller than our card. Okay, now if you want your hearts to be a reasonable size, but without being too small, an inch probably isn't far off the mark. Now, because we want to put some space between those hearts, I'm going to take it down just a little bit more to the 3/4 inches. Okay, so I'm going to go to add pattern. I'm going to go into my basic shapes. I'm going to go down to where my hearts are. Okay, and I'm just going to add a nice simple basic heart shape. Okay, so the decorative edges work really well when we're working in positive to cut out a heart, but when we want to have both aperture and the actual heart itself, sometimes they don't always work how we want them to. So we'll start off with a nice smooth heart for this particular project, and we said that we want it at 3/4 of an inch, so we're going to take it right down, 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 down. Oh, not that far, so we're looking for 0.75. Okay, so we've got a heart shape. Now at this point we could go and put in 20 of them, right? But what I'm thinking is, if I've got a 5.5 square and I want to put in all these hearts, I think I can get at least 4 in a row. So I'm going to do just one row. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and if we tap our little spanner, we've already got something that's going to help us out. So the pattern interval here controls how much space there is between shapes when you add them to the mat. And it's really important to make that distinction when you add them to the mat or when you use your space saving features. Okay, everything else in terms of align and distribute, totally ignore pattern interval. It's just on those 2 occasions that it's used. So we've got this pattern interval 2. We're going to go OK, and we're going to add that to the mat. Okay, so we've added those hearts, and if we look at the width that's currently taking up compared to our square, we can do one of 2 things. We can either add in a couple of hearts to take it up to the width of the square, or we can increase our pattern interval to actually make our lives look better. Now, what you could do is take those back out, re-import them, blah blah blah, but there's actually an easier way of doing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Space Savers. Okay, tap the spanner. Now we can alter and play with that pattern interval. So I'm going to put it up to 3. Okay, and at the moment nothing has changed. Now we want to use the one where we keep everything in its current rotation, and it's going to space everything out. Now it might be that at that point that whatever shape you're using for your background is perfectly spaced, and away we go. But I'm going to go OK for now. Now, if we go to edit, it's going to select our last shape that was added to the mat. So I'm going to go into Object Edit, and I'm going to say, actually, let's pop in another one, because odd numbers are always good. And it's just going to put it down to the right a little bit. That's okay, because what we're going to do, we're going to go back to our Space Saver, and it's going to space it for us. We haven't got to move it, we haven't got to line it, all the rest of it. We're making the machine do the hard work. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to go OK, into Edit, Multi-Select, and we're going to use this one that looks like a little window. And that's where we can go, actually, I want everything in there to be highlighted, and we can go OK. And all those shapes are going to be selected. Okay, go to Object Edit, and we're going to group them. So we group them so that they're locked in that formation. Now I'm going to drag those into the middle here. Okay, now from this point onwards, anytime that we go to the Space Saver function, it's going to try and move everything about. So from here on in, we're going to use Align instead. So we need probably 5 copies of that group. Okay, so there's our 5 copies. And I'm going to line these up very roughly, like so. Now, if if you click on the square, just be patient. Click off and try and get to the one underneath. Sometimes you'll find that it can be a bit annoying. Okay. So, we could just do that like that and it will come out a bit hickory-pickory. How can we fix that so it looks better? So, I'll move my square over to one side. I'm going to go into multi-select. I'm going to tap so nothing is selected, there's no red box. I'm going to go to the window. I'm going to size that window down to just our hearts. We go OK. OK again. So now we can go into move, align. I'm going to go and align everything to the left. Looks better already. But now we're going to do our distribution. So there's an equal amount of space between all of them. And at this point we can go, okay, that's not looking too bad. Maybe you could do with a little bit more space. How can we do that quickly? Okay. So I'm going to go, okay. I'm going to tap. So I've just got one heart selected. Let's just move this one down. Now obviously if we're to go back into a line at this point, then it's not going to give us our selection. So just back into multi-select, select those. Okay. Now we can go into move, align, space, and we can double check that everything is still lined up. When you're happy with that spacing, we're going to go OK, OK, into object, edit and group. So that way it's locked together. So then when we move our square back over, we can go select everything, OK, move, align, and then we can do centre and middle. Okay, so centre is your horizontal centre, middle is your vertical centre. So with those done, we can go OK, 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 and then we can just cut it as normal. So I'm going to line my card up to the topmost left, and we can fix our card with some masking tape if we wish. So I'm just going to use a few little pieces. Okay. And it's not really there to kind of fix it permanently, it's just there just to tack it to the mat just in case. Okay, so I'm going to go to cut. Okay, and it's going to take 5 minutes to cut. We can speed that up a little bit. We've got a standard auto blade in, which is the black one. Okay, and I'm going to go up to about 3. And we can do that whenever something is going to take a little bit longer than we desire. And I'm just going to pop my cut pressure up a bit to -6 because we are working with card and not paper. Paper's a little bit more forgiving. Okay, so with that done, off we pop. Now if your cut goes through your masking tape, try not to worry. Let's just change the angle, just so that you can see it cutting. Okay. So while this is cutting, just make sure that your blade is latched down, and then you can go to cut as well. So the idea behind doing these backgrounds is that we can do a both a positive and negative version of the actual design. So this doesn't necessarily have to be hearts. It could be that it's dots. And keep it really simple, just circles. It could be that you've used one of the designs in the design section. Just be aware that if you're working this small, go for something that's nice and simple and bold, or swap to the vinyl water blade for anything that's really intricate. Okay, so with that down, let's peel that off. Okay, so metal spatula time. I'm going to approach this from the side rather than the corner. I just want to try and get the palette knife underneath. And then once it's under, then we can just slide it down. Now that's going to release this outer frame, which is going to be one part of our one card design. But we're also going to have all these little hearts. Now, what you could do, if you don't want to create more than one Valentine's card, you could use these as confetti inside your card. If you want to give a small gift, that's the word I'm looking for, then all you have to do is use these as filling in your gift box. So we're going to have lots there. Now, if this is a design or a background that you want to use more than once, then just use the save button. If not, then you can move on to the assembly without worrying about it. Now, with saving, you could go to USB, to the local memory, or send it to the cloud for you to save on your computer. So when we're saving stuff to the cloud, just need to go into Canvas Workspace and do the save from there. Okay, so we've got our hearts and the background. So let's go back overhead, and here's our card, and we want to take off our purple tape. So if you do have any masking tape, we can just peel that away and dispose of. Okay, so we've got our perfectly aligned hearts, and it's going to fit perfectly in our card. So let's first of all stick this on. So when it comes to using tape and glue and things like that, generally what I'll do is use wet glue where we need things stuck down, but there aren't huge areas for, let's say, tape to go. Then I'm going to go for my thinner tape. And then we can go around the edges. Okay. So, there we go. Now we're going to peel away our backing. Now if you wanted to, you could do the opposite corner trick where you peel back just two opposite corners of the backing tape and position and stick down and remove the backing tape. Okay, so I'm going to offer this up so that I'm getting a nice central border. So now I just need maybe a couple of little hearts that we can pop up. So I'm going to use the first of my paper pads to give me some paper to do that with. So you could go for a solid colour, but it'd be pretty boring for this. So let's go stripy, shall we? Now, if you're doing this with paper like I am, you're probably going to want to use a couple of your pink hearts just to kind of pad up the paper once it's cut. Okay, so I'm going to attach that to like that. And now, okay, so we are going to now do a few hearts out of our batch, just so that we can have a few just to dot around our card. So, when the ScanNCut doesn't go to sleep, what we want to do is just take one of those lines. So, I'm going to take our shapes, okay, and I'm going to move my square away temporarily, okay. I'm going to go back to my group of hearts. I'm going to edit, object edit on group, which is going to give us our individual lines, okay. Now we can go to multi-select and we're going to select 4 lines and we're going to delete them, okay. Now this next bit is entirely down to your choice. If you want to pop another box around so that you have a border of hearts that you can use, that is fine. If you just want to have just some individual hearts, you can just move these up to the corner and just get rid of the box. Now because I'm going to be using other papers, I know that I don't really need to actually cut that many. So I'm just going to go okay, okay, back to cut, and let that go. Okay, so move ahead. Okay, so we now have our hearts cut, and let's grab our spatula. Oops. So for some reason these are not taken off that. There we go. So we've got our 5 hearts. So now what we're going to do is, because these are just paper and we want to 3D them up, let's use a couple of our pink hearts that we have standing to one side, and we're just going to do 3 little dots of glue, okay, and that's going to go straight on. Now these are cut with the same cut file, so we know they're going to be perfect matches. Well, they should be. If you aren't getting a perfect match, there's something wrong with your machine. Okay. So, there we go. Now, because we're using water-based aqua glue, it takes a little bit longer than your standard PVA, so just something to bear in mind. Now I'm going to do this for 2 more hearts. It's two more stripy hearts anyway. Okay. A good smudge around. Okay. Okay, one more to go for this one. Good news is being wet glue, we can be a little bit quicker and line it up at the end. Oh, it's drunk. Okay, so let's just line these up now. I want to make sure we get them nice and flush. So you want to set those to one side and let those dry before adhering to your card. Now, just because I want to move on reasonably quickly, I'm just going to grab some little circle pop dots. And here's a tip. If you are like me and you're a bit of an impatient card maker, don't try and stick your pop dot to the ones that you've just glued, because that won't work. Stick it to your card instead. And I'm just going randomly. Okay, and one more for good measure. And just want to take those papers off. Okay, and there we go. Card number one. Now, it may seem that like this took a long time to set up, but once you've done this once and you've saved the file, it's really simple to then cut loads of them in lots of different colours. You could save the hearts in a jar for when you need them for a particular colour. So I have like loads of plastic jars and things that I use to keep all these little pieces in. And the backgrounds are good to go. So now let's bring in our next card. Okay, so we've already done our hearts. Okay, so if you need those, you're going to need to go back to card one and create them. Or if you have them saved, then you're going to need to cut some. I'm going to just temporarily just fold my card blank. And the reason I'm going to do this with this one is it's sometimes a little bit wonky donkey and I want to get an accurate fold. Okay. So we've got our card blank. And put it back out flat. And I'm just going to mark the score line. So if that's the front of our card here, our score line is just here to this side of my tape. Okay, and that's so that when we end up going direct to card, it's going to be nice and easy to see where that score line is. So what I want to do next is I'm going to get my next paper pad. And let's go for this one because I think the pink heart's going to tone well with this. And I've put inside some complimentary card that's going to also match. we don't need to worry about that at this point. We may or may not use it. So I'm going to start off by having a sheet of toppers, and let's pull out a few backing papers as well. And if any of the sentiments kind of match what you need, then we can use those. But to be honest, there's only really someone special, and I'm not sure whether the colour's going to go, so I'm going to hold off on that for a moment. I'll come back to that in a bit. Okay. So we've got our papers, we've got our hearts that we cut before, and where we're going to go from there. So I quite like how this one is, but obviously the happy birthday dearest friend really isn't going to work for us for this particular project. So what can we do? So first of all, I want a circle design on here. And the easiest way to do that is, first of all, we're going to pop a card onto our cutting mat. So you want it so that it's 1 inch in, 1 inch down. Okay. So if you're not familiar with this setup, go back and watch yesterday's live stream, which to me is actually still today's. So I'm going to pop just a little guide in, and I'm going to bring in my topper, and I'm going to grab my ruler. Okay, so with the ruler we're going to measure the diameter of a circle. Now you're never going to get it spot on, but close enough is going to be good enough for this one. So I want my circle to be bigger than the circle my topper. So the circle my topper is about 98mm. So if I go a bit bigger than that, let's say centimetre around the outside. Oh, excuse me. So a centimetre around the outside, we're going to be looking at about 12 centimetres or 120mm. Okay, so let's reset our ScanNCut, and we're going to go back. Okay, so we're going to go pattern, basic shape, and down to circle, because we're just going to use this as a guide. So we're not actually going to cut anything, we're just going to use it to actually draw a circle onto our card. Okay, so what I am going to do before I go too far, just because we've done that fold in our card, I'm just going to fix it a bit better to the mat. So just some masking tape, just where the card folds, and you'll see this in a minute on the background scan. Okay, so either side. Okay, so we want to change to millimetres, because that's what we measured our circle in. On 120, not par. There we go, and set that onto our mat. We're going to do a background scan. Now what I would say is, when you're doing this background scan, have the lever in the up position. Okay, so I'm going to bring our circle into the middle of our card. Get it roughly right, then we're going to go into move, and we're going to nudge so that we get it where we want it. Now, because our shape is so big, there's very little point in us going and getting another square and doing the line to get that like that. So I'm just going to leave that as is. So I'm going to go okay. Okay, okay. And this time we're going to draw it. So let's get our pen holder. Okay. And I'm just going to put in a cheap pencil. Okay. Doesn't need to be a fancy technical pencil for this one, because we're not being ultra accurate, and it's also not that big of a shape. Okay. So in we go with that, and in terms of speed, 5, that's fair enough because it's a pencil, it's not like it has ink to flow. Pressure, you can take it down a little if you want, just so that we're not unnecessarily running the pencil or etching that line in. And I'm just getting type to go. Now, if you wanted to do this in a lighter colour pencil, then you could. But it's useful for you to see on the screen. I draw it a little bit darker. Okay, so here we go. We have our circle guideline. Okay, so now we're going to remove the tape from our score lines, like so. I'm just going to fold my card back. Okay. So eventually our topper is going to stick inside that circle. So let's see if we can actually get it to cut it out. So again, we're going 1 inch in, 1 inch down, so that it can see right up to those edges. Otherwise, because that circle is so close to the edge, there's no way that it is going to be able to pick that out. So we're going to go home to reset. Okay, scan, and we want to direct cut. We want to use the machine. I'm just going to take the pencil out because we don't need that in there anymore for the time being. Okay, so when we are scanning, one of the options you're going to get to choose is your mode. Now, for most occasions when you have something that's on a white background, you're going to go to black and white. When you have something on a colour background, you're going to go to colour. Okay, it's as simple as that. So our outline for our circle is actually quite pale. So this is going to be one of the occasions where I'm going to go colour and OK. I'm going to tell it to go, and it's going to say scan lever, drop it down and start. Now we're going to frame that image so we just have just outside that square. So we're saying that you need to look in that area there. And we'll go OK. Now this may work, this may not work. Okay, if you get this where it's literally just in the outside square, then sometimes you can alter it by colour. So let's put it up. Okay, so it's still not working. Let's go back then. And we're going to go back one stage. And we're going to take it in just inside our pink line. Now it is extraordinarily tight, so it is going to be a case of getting that positioning just right on this one. Okay. Let's see if we can do it this time. If not, there is another way that we can do it. So you can see it, but it's not really seeing it because we've got these jagged edges around the outside. Firstly, don't worry. As I said, more than one way to skin a rabbit. So I'm going to go to pattern and down to circle, add a circle, doesn't matter what size. We're going to do a background scan because it's still got the other one. And this is where you are going to become kind of the tracer instead of the machine. So I'm going to slide over this circle. Okay, that's not too bad or a match. So I'm going to go to edit, move, zoom, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to scroll. Okay, and now I can use my little arrow keys up here to move around. Now, we know it resizes from that centre point. So we want to try and get this in the middle as much as possible. Now this is very slightly not circular. So I'm going to go OK. OK. And it's very, very slightly oval. So I'm going to go into Object Edit, Resize, Ratio, and I'm just going to adjust that width fractionally because we want to try and get this spot on. Okay, so with that in place, I'm going to add another circle, and that's because we've got these little petals that go around the outside in that bottom corner. Okay, just here. So we want to try and trace those two. Now, you've got a decision here. What you could do is make it really, really simple to just make that circle big enough to encase that flower and you fuzzy cut by hand, which is absolutely fine if that's what you want to do. So I'm just going to go and zoom in with the move because you want to make sure you've got all of that petal in, like so. Okay, so that cut line should go around the outside of the circle. That one should go around the outside of the flower. And then it's just a case of weld them both together. So select everything, into Object Edit and weld. Okay, 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 okay. And let's get to cut. And pop in our standard and off it goes. Okay, so with that done, we're gonna very quickly, she says, very quickly lose your palette knife. And there we go. Very quickly pull this off. So we've got most of our circle done, and then we've got this tiny little bit here that just needs tidying up. So I'm just gonna grab some scissors. Continue that circle curve up until the point where you get to a petal, and turn. So I'm just going to follow that round. Okay, and back to just finish that off. Okay, so we've got our little topper, and obviously we don't want this bit here, so one option would be to cut that out as a separate shape. But to be honest, it's probably going to look a bit weird because you've got all this white background, so you'd end up having to fussy cut all the way around in here, which is going to be very time consuming and not quick at all. So here's my first suggestion. First of all, I'm going to pop this into the middle. Now you'll notice I'm not going to apply glue all the way to the edges yet. And that's because I might want to tuck something in. So I'm going to line that up into the centre of my circle. Okay. Okay. So now we go back to our paper. And we can go, okay, perhaps we want to put that one with our sentiment on, perhaps we want to use that one with our sentiment. I think that green could look quite nice actually, so let's go with that one. Let's take our masking tape off while I've got him out. Okay. So, back to the ScanNCut. Okay, reset. Okay. So, as you can still see in the top left corner, we're going to measure the sentiment that we need to cover, so we have kind of a minimum figure. So we've got about 3.5 centimetres height wise, and let's say 4.5 width wise. So we could do an oval, we could do a rectangle. Given that our circle already had a bit of an oval to it anyway, I think I'm going to go oval. So nice fat oval. So we know that we want to go for a 3.5 centimetre height. So that's 35 at least. So we're going to go a little bit bigger. Now, when we've got nearly to the figure where we want our height to be, we can double check our width. And our width's a little bit big. So I'm just going to use the ratio button and just take that down to about 46. And that's looking pretty good. So at this point, I'm not worrying about what my sentiment's going to be or where I'm going to put it or anything else. I'm just concentrating on covering up the details that need to be covering up. So I'm just going to go, okay, cut. My paper's lined up into that top left corner. I can just tell it to go. So with something like the stripes, you could play with the rotation, so you have more of a diagonal stripe. You could have it so it goes horizontally. Seriously, I had it like 5 seconds ago. There we go. Okay, so that's going to go overlapping that bit, and let's just see if it needs to go at a slight bit of an angle. Just want to try and get everything covered up as much as possible. If there's a few little bits and pieces, don't worry, we've still got our sentiment to go on top. So let me go back overhead. So again, I'm going to glue. I'm going to keep my outside edges open, just in case I decide that I'm going to do some fussy cutting, or it might be that I'm going to add some more of the some more of the hearts maybe. Okay, so now you're wondering why I drew that circle to begin with. And that's because we can use it to create a frame. Okay, so we could do a couple of these stripy hearts. So I'm going to slide that under there. Okay, so we can do the parts around the outside if you want to. Now obviously this is going to be quite a busy card, so we've kind of done one really simple, one that's going to be slightly busier. And it's easiest when you're doing this to kind of do your 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock, and then do the ones in between. Okay. Okay. So once we space those out, we can then just very carefully slide a little glue underneath. Let's just rotate that one around so it's got the texture the right side up. And there we go. Okay. So once these are all done, it's just a case of sentiment and job done. Then I'm going to do it super quick on for the last card, because we still have some hearts left. So okay, there we go. So those are all done. We've got our hearts going round. Now what I would say is, when it comes to erasing your guidelines, an electric eraser, like a battery one, is going to be much easier to do and much cleaner. Okay, so we've got our little hearts all set up, so we just need a nice sentiment. So it's at this point I go back to the pad and I think, would that one that I originally said still work? Okay, so let's take out a sheet. Now with something like this where it's a cut apart, use a trimmer, not your ScanNCut, unless you want to cut it into a fancy shape. Just because your ScanNCut can't cut edge to edge. Okay, so trimmer. That moment when you realise something's started. There we go. So, next one. So set the rest aside for other projects. And I try and keep these in a bigger piece as possible until they're ready to actually be used. Just because they are printed on paper rather than on card. It can be quite difficult to see where the line is sometimes with some of these tonal variations, so just take a little time. So we've got someone special. Okay, now if I bring my card back in, let's see how that looks. So tonally it looks a little off, but it's close enough that we can get away with it, particularly if we bring that colour in somewhere else. So next, it's also going to totally overpower our little oval that we did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that back on my mat, 1 inch in, 1 inch down. Let's go back across to here. And we're going to go, okay, we've still got our oval from before. So we're going to go back and we're going to do background scan. Now this is going to seem really daft doing a background scan for this one little tiny image, but it's worth it. Okay, so now I can take my oval and I'm going to go to edit. Let's go to object edit and resize because we know it needs to go a little bit smaller. Now take that ratio function off. Let's just put it there. And go, okay, so we've brought it down a little bit. I'm going to go to zoom. And I'm just going to move it down because I want to make sure that we're within our paper. Okay. And let's just use our nudge. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in more. So even if we can't see perfectly, which we can't always with our scanner, we can kind of work out roughly where our text is. So we've got S-O-N-E-O-N, and then there should be an E there, because that lines up with our L here. So that means our oval is going to actually have to stretch just a little. So we're going to go to Object Edit, into Resize, use that ratio function. So our width needs to go up, but I'm going to compensate for that by taking my height down as well. So I'm going to go okay, okay, back into zoom, and let's try again. So zoom right in, and let's take that across. Okay, so because our someone special aligns to the right, that means that it's going to look a bit weird in terms of having this big area to the right hand side of our oval. That's okay. So I'm going to go okay, Okay, and let's just cut that out. Now I'm going to raise this up so that it's 3D. Okay. So here's our oval, and as you can see, we've got that height difference so that we can still see our backing paper, and we're going to raise that up. So you could do that with another couple of layers of card. Just for speed today, I'm just going to use some 3D pop. Okay, so now we're going to take those and we're going to stick that right into the middle. So remember how I said it's going to have this open area just here? This is where, if you've got a pattern paper where you've got lots of little details, then you can use that to fussy cut from. So I'm just going to take this flower paper here and let's see if we can just take out a few of the details of that, just to kind of tone this pink in here. So this is where I start to look for areas that I might be able to pull out, and I think, to be honest, this one down here is looking pretty promising, so I'm just going to literally cut that out like that. So I'm not going to fussy cut too much so I know that it's right for where I'm going. So I want to kind of have that there. Okay. So that's the fussy cutting. Okay, let's just swap out that bit. Okay. So I'm thinking if we put that out there, that looks good. So again, if you wanted to, you could 3D it up, but I'm just going to put a little bit of glue just there. Okay. Now, the heart may be a bridge too far, so I think I'm just going to leave that like so. So we've got a little bit of dimension, but not too much. Let's just get any little straggly bits of fuzzy cutting out there. Okay, so with a nice clean eraser, you just want to go around and erase that guideline. So that's another one done. Okay, so now we're ready for the last card, and we want to keep this one nice and simple. So I'm going to use my sheet that I've already taken a bit out for the fuzzy cut, and I'm going to use it as a background panel. Now it's quite dense in colour, so we can use it for effects like eclipse cards. You could use it for creating a frame, but this time I'm going to go a little bit different. So let's pop this onto our mat. I'm going to do a little bit of measuring. So I'm going to go again in 1 inch each direction. Now we know our card base is 5.75 inches. So if we look at our first card, we can see how much of border that 5.5 gives us. So this time I'm going to step it down 1 notch to 5.25. Okay. So let's change view. Okay. So we're going to go to pattern, square, and we want to change to inches. Okay, and we want 5.25. Okay, so that's going to put that on our mat straight off. I'm going to bring that in just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to do a background scan, and I'm doing a background scan for a reason. I want to select the strongest area of colour on that paper. Now, obviously, as there's a notch missing out the bottom, we have to be a little bit mindful of that so that we don't accidentally have a cut-out section of our square. Okay, so we can see that that square is quite dense as it is. There's a little bit of a gap just there, so we'll try and avoid using that for what we want. So now we're going to go to add, pattern, and we want a nice bold word design. So it could be that we use one of the ones that are in the system. So if we go down to the love, that's nice and bold. Okay, so you want something like same kind of strength. Now if you're going to be choosing a sentiment that you're setting yourself, which I think I'm going to do for this one, we're going to go to our text and we're going to choose our boldest font. Okay, so we can then, just going to delete that, love. So we've got our love, and this is going to put it in as one word. Okay, and we're going to set that in. So then we can drag that word and we can pop it in the middle. That is looking pretty spot on for where I need it. Okay, I'm going to go to edit, select all, okay, move, align, and then I'm going to go center and center. Fair enough. Go okay, 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 and then we're going to go to cut. So as that's now cut, I'm going to take away that and we can get our wrapping paper off. Now, if you have a letter like O, where it's got a centre section, you could try and rescue that and then reposition it using the letters. But for now, I'm just going to leave this as is. Now, I'm going to use some wider double-sided tape. Now, if you wanted to make this ultra quick, if you have a Xyron sticker maker, what you can do is apply some double-sided adhesive before you make the cut. I have a mat that I've specially converted to be able to do that. So you just need some double-sided adhesive just for when you are using either Xyron backed, or if you have like the double-sided adhesive sheets. Obviously don't put anything else on there because otherwise it will be welded to the mat. Okay, so we're getting there. Now, if there's anything like this where we've got our little bits of our V's and these, I'm just going to use a very small amount just to hold those in place. And same with our owl there, just because there's little pointy bits. Anything else is going to pretty much behave for you. Okay. So now I'm going to slide that into place. There we go. So we have our love. Now, if you look at this and you think, I really wish it had a bit more colour around that aperture, just to help it pop, all is not lost. So remember, we've got our centre of our letters. So I'm just going to just grab these, and you can still use these after, but they're just going to be a bit stronger coloured than what they are now. Okay, so I'm going to pop these back in just temporarily, just in case you've made start the card and you're like, I'm not happy with that. Have I gone wrong? Okay. So let's insert those in. No. Okay. So I'm going to hold those in place when I'm doing this anyway. So let's just grab a little bit of blending brush and just decide which colour you want to kind of enhance. Okay, so I'm going to go for a bit of saltwater taffy, I think, which has that kind of corally tone to it without being too strong. This is one of those things where less is definitely more. Okay, I'm going to grab a clear stamp block, and this could be a nice thin one, and I'm just going to kind of concentrate on half at a time, like so, so that I can hold on to my letters and keep those in place. Now I'm using the distress ink, and I'm just going to load up my brush, pop the lid back on. Okay, now if you're right-handed like me, just rotate your card, press down on your stamp mount, and we're just going to just flick across. And just gently turn that brush around and around. Okay, now You may think that there's very little ink there, but if I zoom in, you might just see it in the centre of my O. Let's see if I can turn that light off for a minute. It's just glaring a bit too much for you to see it, but there's like a line that literally goes down the centre of my O. So let's put that back on. There we go. Okay. So now that we've done one side, I'm going to rotate this around like so. I'm going to line up my grid, my mount. Okay. Re-ink our brush. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to blend out that line. Okay. Done. So now we can pop out the letters. And come on camera, you can pick this up. There we go. So you can see just there that we've got that inking in the centre. So I'm just going to pop those to one side, and we can use that for another card, and we probably will do. So for this video today, I'm just doing 3 ideas, but there's going to be another post that will go up with another 3 even easier ideas. That it's going to be a bit closer to the time, because you've still got time at the moment to make a nice Valentine's Day card. So let's have a look at these little hearts. And I think just one, just there, 3D'd up, job done, nice and simple. So one lip popped up. Looks an awful lot more complicated than it is. There we go. So if you go for a pattern paper that has a background colour to it, there'd be even less for you to do, because you won't even have that kind of inking just to help that contrast go. And if I rotate it this way, you can just see that inking a little bit better. So it's not glaring quite so much. So what I'll do is I will bring in our other 3 cards. Now, as I said, remember to save the pieces that you don't use, and they can be another nice simple idea. Okay. So we have number 3, number 1, and last but not least, number 2. So which would you go for? And I'd love to hear your choices and why. So do pop a comment in the comments below with which is your favourite, which one you're going to have a go at, whether you're going to go ultra easy and simple, whether you're going to go ultra fussy, or if you are going to go somewhere between the two with our little look. Okay, so take care, and I'll see you next week when I'll be back on Wednesday. Take care for now. Bye.